Hello, and welcome to ELI Presents Pass the Mic. This podcast is presented by the Foundation of the Alliance for Community Media. The Foundation works to advance community media through educational programs, research, and by raising the visibility of the field nationwide. It also supports programs like the Hometown Media Awards, the Inclusion, Equity, and Engagement Caucus, and the Emerging Leaders Institute, which presents this show. Pass the Mic is hosted by Emerging Leaders Institute alumni and features conversations with the people who helped build community media as we know it and the leaders who are shaping it as we move forward. It's a space to share stories, lessons, and leadership insights as we pass the mic from community media leaders past, present, and future. I'm your host for today, Tommy Shenefield. I'm the Assistant Radio Manager at Boston Neighborhood Network Media and WBCA 102.9 FM, whose studios we join you from today. I'm also a board member on the board of the Foundation of the Alliance for Community Media, but I join you today as an alumnus of the Emerging Leaders Institute class of 2024. I've been involved in community media myself since 2016, but I'm joined by somebody who has 30 years of experience in the field. I'm very happy to be joined by our guest, Glenn Williams. And Glenn is deeply involved in community media. He serves on the boards of the Alliance for Community Media Northeast Region, the National Alliance for Community Media, as well as the Foundation of the Alliance for Community Media, and the ACM Inclusion, Equity, and Engagement Caucus Board. He's also the general manager here at Boston Neighborhood Network Media. So thank you very much, Glenn, for taking the walk all the way down the hall to be on the show today.
No, Tommy, it's a great pleasure to be here in the WBCA 102.9 radio station. It's been a little while since I've been in here, but thank you very much for that introduction. You know, it's a very busy lifestyle to be involved in public media, you know, and the ACM is such a grand organization in operation to where all of that kind of things and, you know, and where there's a lot of stations going through some issues today. And I think it's an important organization to be familiar with, but also, you know, be a part of.
You're doing a lot of important work. And again, as I mentioned, you're deeply involved in many facets of the field. Where did it all begin? How did you get started in community media?
Well, it's a great story. A buddy of mine, Tim Casey, and I were doing a fundraising coffee house back in the 90s, I think it was, and someone asked me to come on a show at Boston Neighborhood Network. And after I did my 12-minute stint being interviewed about what we were doing, someone asked me why I wasn't on the arts show. And coincidentally, they didn't have an arts show, so my sainted bride, Janice, super producer Janice, and I decided to do one for 6 months. Well, I've been here since. So it's one of those things that we did a television show, then I did a radio show, then I was on the board and kind of got really involved with that. And it's led to this great opportunity and just being part of the responsibility of what's going on here in the public media, especially in a great city like the city of Boston. It's an honor. It's an honor and a pleasure.
And so again, you've been involved long enough that you must enjoy it. I don't mean to presume, but when you first started all those years ago, what was it that really stuck with you as something that like, oh, this is something special? Like what did it, when you first started your show, what kept you coming back?
Well, you know, you do a show like that, you come in, you don't know anything about the organization, you don't know anything about it. You've seen a couple of things on TV, maybe a sports event or something like that. And, you know, once I did it a couple of times and stuff, I recognized and noticed that there were people that actually recognized the fact that I was doing it and that I was involved in the arts and doing a program and asking to be on the show. And it just grew and grew from there, you know. So, and, you know, the deeper I got into the organization, Boston Neighborhood Network, what I recognized was that the message that they're bringing in the goals and what they want to accomplish and the things that have to be reached, it just became something that I became very passionate about. I mean, I think it's really important that people have an opportunity in a space to be able to speak their mind, you know, talk about things that are important to them. I mean, we have people across the board here at Boston Neighborhood Network who are rights and lefts and in the middles and all of that. And their opinion is as valuable as anybody else's here. And I think that's one of the things that kind of really turned me on. And then I got to know about it, and then there was education involved. And, of course, that G part of PEG is so crucial, which is the transparency of our government. Mm-hmm. You know, they can't do anything in the city council chambers without us putting it on TV live, you know, and giving people an opportunity to see what their elected officials are talking about, you know, and all of that. So I think it's a really important. It's obviously a necessary segment of our community that I think has to be protected.
Yeah, and you have a very, broad perspective on community media, having been a producer. You've served on the board here at BNN, and you're the general manager now at BNN. From all of those perspectives, what have you learned is the importance of community media, both being a producer and now, supporting producers? Mm-hmm.
If you turn on 4, 5, and 7 for the news or something, it's always about some disaster, some poor kid that was killed, some house that burnt down, some country that can't keep their it's just all horrible news. And then the last 5 minutes of that half an hour is some fluffy thing, But I think what's important here is that what we talk about here is what's great about being a Bostonian. What goes into enjoying your neighborhood? How do you get involved? There's going to be a block party around the corner. A couple of kids' basketball teams from high school are playing for the state tournament. That kind of thing. And we bring all that into people's homes. And the more people that I talk to and the more people that I run into, I discovered that there is an aspect of our community that can't get out, that don't get the information that they need, that are afraid to go out. Since the pandemic, there are people that just won't leave their home.
And are there any particular stories or productions that really have stood out to you as, like, these are the moments that highlight what makes community media so special and important?
Sure. There's an old story that I tell, and I don't mind telling it again. And what it is it's that football team. We were covering it, and there was a long pass, and this young kid grabbed the ball, bubbled it around, and ran it in for a touchdown. And one of our cameramen from the past ran down and stuck the camera in the kid's face and asked him what it felt like. Well, we got a communication from a grandfather not too long after that, stating that young individual was somebody who was on the spectrum and didn't communicate very well, didn't talk. But that turned this kid's life. That was one of the big events of this young kid's life. And he plays it all the time, and he sits and tells people about his experience. That's a life-changing thing.
Yeah, it can make such a difference to feel seen because, as you say, there are a lot of people who aren't necessarily being represented on a commercial news outlet or some national station. So
exactly.
And what do you think is lost if a community doesn't have a community media station and people don't feel represented in that way? What do we risk losing?
A trust in your neighborhood. I think you lose a trust in your local government. You lose. You get told you can't share. You get told that what you're doing and what you're thinking personally isn't important. You get told that there will not be an avenue for you to get up there and say, I think that this is, whatever, One of the things that makes us very proud about being Americans is that we can talk and say what we want, and that we can communicate, and we have the right to say the things that we feel. We shouldn't be afraid to say, that Glenn, he's a bum. You shouldn't be afraid of that. You should have a venue. You should have an avenue that you can take where you can share all that information. And that's what we do. Anybody can walk through the door, become a member for short money, and do an hour-long television and radio program every week. And if it's talking about Girl Scout cookies, or if it's talking about the politicians in the area, or if it's talking about snow removal, this is the place where you can come and share that experience.
Yeah, and I love what you said about it being a key to, knowing and trusting your neighbors to be able to communicate with one another.
Yeah.
And you yourself are a lifelong Roslindale
Yes,
resident,
I
a wonderful
am.
neighborhood here in Boston.
I certainly am. I love Rosendale. Been there for a long, long time. We're in the house my grandparents bought in the 30s, and it's always been a family. And my grandkids are living in that big old house now, and they're like the sixth generation in there. So we're kind of we have a cornerstone right in the middle of Rosendale, and we love that. We love the fact that we're part of that community, and the fact that there's so many things going on in just our small neck of the woods that you can only imagine what's happening across the city, where people want to talk about it or need to know about it, and this is the place.
Definitely. And do you feel like having those strong neighborhood ties yourself, do you feel like that influences the importance you see in having that sense of community? And do you bring that to being the manager here?
Oh, undoubtedly. I mean, it's if I was somebody who was traveling, my family moved here, there's really no root. There's no root feeling. I mean, I'm not saying that people that do travel around don't love their neighborhoods, but what I am saying is when you've grown up there and your kids have grown up there and you're still in the community and you're part of the Main Streets program or you're a part of the local whatever organizations that help vitalize the community, you love it. I mean, I can use the word love, and I think it's not just, hey, I like living here. This is a cool neighborhood. Look what's down the street. Oh, we got a store over there. No, I genuinely love being in Rosendale, which is part of Boston. So I love being a Bostonian. You can probably tell by my R's.
It's good that you're keeping the accent alive.
I practice at night just to make sure I...
Can you teach me? We'll do that after the show. Okay. So a big part of this show is kind of discussing the matter of leading community media because, it's a field that is very much, it's not just a hierarchy of people telling producers what to do. Mm-hmm. So I think that's very important to recognize. But at the same time, it is a field in a kind of a constant period of growth and exploring what comes next. So as you are, a leader of this station here, BNN, and you're also involved in the national boards of the ACM and the ACM Foundation, what's your approach to leadership?
Well, I think the important thing that we have to practice and the thing that we need to lean on a lot is bringing in people to be involved. I mean, for a long time, it's always been people in the communities and people at the local PEG access stations and stuff. But there's so much turmoil going on now with cord cutting and funding coming down and stuff that we're kind of losing the leadership nationally. We're losing the conversations you have with a like station in Nevada or a station in Florida or New Hampshire and Maine that are like us, that are experiencing a lot of the things that we're going through as well. We have to make sure that we get some leadership. And I think that's what the emerging leadership thing is all about. I think it's about bringing people in that may be saying to themselves, I'm not really sure exactly what this whole organization is. I'm not really positive about the things that are important, and I'm not really sure how I should contribute my talents to it. And I think that this gives them an opportunity to sit next to somebody who is from another part of the country, and I think when you walk out of a meeting like that, when you're talking about leadership and when you're talking about what goes into making sure that the community access stays in the kind of position we're in, that I'll guarantee you that a lot of people walk out of those kind of meetings and say, well, I have a lot in common with this person. It's not just a job, it's a commitment. And one of the things, I got to tell you, one of the things I tell everybody all the time, and if you're listening out there and you've heard this before, you'll hear it again, 80% of the people that are working here started as interns. And they said, yeah, I'll take an intern at BNN, but they've ended up staying to work here. And inevitably, somebody comes into my office and says, Glenn, I'm leaving, and I'm going to be doing something else. And I get concerned. Maybe there's something I said or did or whatever. And I find out that they're going to go work for ESPN, or they're going to go work for, so it's a stepping stone, but not only the stepping stone to a career in the industry, it's also a place where you learn that leadership. And the fact that the Foundation for the Alliance for Community Media has this program where people can attend that and kind of sit around with the Mike Wassenaars and sit around with the Barbara Chisholms and talk about what it is to be a leader in this industry. It's very important.
And as you say, it kind of becomes a calling for some to work in community media, and it's not just something you do, but it's something you believe in. And I would suspect even those people who maybe move on to commercial outlets, they still kind of keep certain sensibilities of a space like this in what they do.
Oh, well, take, for instance, the great Rhondola Richardson here in Boston. She's on Channel 5, I think it is, and she's done things here. She started here, and I'm not sure she started her whole career here, but she was part of Boston Neighborhood Network. And that's where you learn. That's where you grow, and to have that added extra opportunity where you can share with somebody else and walk out of that meeting saying, I'm not alone. That they're having the same issues that I'm having, and say to yourself that you're not alone in this.
Was there a moment for you when it clicked that it wasn't just Boston Neighborhood Network, it was a whole national movement of community media?
Yeah, when you're engulfed in the production of your program, your weekly hour-long program, live show, you're kind of engrossed in that, And Janice and I kind of buried ourselves in there for a bunch of years. And I got invited by the great Mike Lynch, who was working with the city of Boston at the time. He was like our liaison between the city. And I believe he invited me to an ACM conference that was nearby. And so I went, and I kind of walked into this enormous room full of people who were doing, I was on the board at BNN at the time, who were doing kind of the same kind of things that we were doing. And I know I keep falling back on that, I'm not alone thing. I found that, I want to be involved in this. I want to be somebody that other people can go to. I want to be somebody that's not shy enough to not ask somebody who's a stranger how they're doing things, how things are working out in their station. But, it's an accomplishment and a feeling. And I don't do it for the accomplishments, I do it because of the necessity of the program.
When you started as a producer, was it 1997 that you started It's All About Arts?
96, 97, something like that.
Right. So when you started back then, did you have any inkling that you would one day be running the whole station?
No, not a clue. Curtis Henderson was the general manager at the time, and him and I being both musicians and stuff, we had that commonality, So we would talk and stuff like that. And I'd always looked up to him and always felt that this cat's cool, And but it never dawned on me that it would be something that I would be doing, because I was teaching. I was a teacher at an elementary school, and I was the arts director, and, you get engulfed with that, and you got kids all over the place, and you're loving it, and it's all that. And as I grew in the organization, it did dawn on me that, I think I can probably be helpful, especially since my connection with the national and the regional boards and stuff. Which I ended up joining after I became the general manager. But I was familiar with some of the people there that I, kind of not openly pursued. I will say it was a little bit of a surprise, when it came time. But I don't regret any of the moves. I'm very proud of the stuff that we've done. You got to remember, 6 weeks after I became the general manager, COVID hit.
Yeah, that's quite the challenge to start out with.
Welcome to the business, So actually, if you think about it, part of my initial responsibility was refurbishing, regrowing, bringing more PEG access to the community, because we were doing it from our kitchen tables. It was very, very difficult, but because of the great staff here, I'm so proud of the people that I'm surrounded by here that we pulled it off. And right now we're at a stage where not only is the programming being produced, but the information is getting out there in large. We're talking to the community. We're informing them about what's going. Just for instance, we just did the semifinals and finals for the City of Boston High School basketball champions. We almost had 10,000 people tuning in. That's kind of a number. Everyone kind of goes, "Come on, you're counting them twice." And I'm saying, no, that's how many people were part of that programming. Very proud of that.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of great initiatives that you've been a part of, such as right now we have the Content Creators Club, which is bringing in Boston Public School students to learn about what we're doing here. We do work with the Digital Equity Office in Boston with Brian Donahue and lots of things. And you're speaking about leading through COVID and kind of keeping things running strong. What's your advice for other leaders out there who, whether it's a pandemic or otherwise, they're trying to reinvigorate their station? What words do you have for somebody like that?
Well, the main thing and the thing that drove me was how important our mission is. How important it is, not just, and I do tout all the time about how you city council live cameras and stuff like that. But I think it boils down to the Haywood Fennells, a big, huge advocate for veterans and people like that. And Willie, who works with seniors and stuff and makes sure that they all get their information that they need and that they have a conduit to the issues that may be obstructing their growth or their whatever, and I think it's the love of what we do, and it's the caring of what I learned nationally, I'm the not shy guy, and I speak up all the time. And I love Mike Wassenaar, but he sees me coming sometimes and he goes, "Oh boy, we're going to be talking today." And yes, we are, and I think that's an important aspect of it. But I think the mission is the main thing. Tommy, that it's so important. And I know that you run into people outside that say, "Oh, I heard this, or I saw this, I learned this." And the fact that it's coming from Boston Neighborhood Network, Boston's community radio station, is very, very important.
Yeah, so really centering the mission and kind of having everything you do emanate from that, it sounds like.
Yeah.
What is something that excites you about community media in moving forward? What's something you're looking forward to in the field?
I'll tell you, the thing that excites me the most is having these high school students in here. There was a time when someone would say, "Oh, we're only going to deal with college kids because they know the technology better," and stuff like that. I'm telling you right now, kids from middle school and up, they can produce programming as well as anybody else's. And we're actually bringing in with the great support from Robert Lewis from the City of Boston. Him and I have been working on this for a while, and bringing these kids in here and learning three of the big aspects of media: radio, editing, and television production. And they're getting that exposure. And the kids didn't want to leave yesterday, and it's that kind of atmosphere and thing that I'm really, really proud that when the kids come in, they look and smile and recognize us as someone that's there for them. So it's very cool.
Yeah, and much as this podcast is about, intergenerational exchange, programs like that show that people of all backgrounds and ages have something to contribute to community media.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to see some of the finished products because I know these kids are thinking and they're going to be putting something together.
Well, thank you so much, Glenn, for coming on the show.
My honor. Thank you.
Any brief words you want to give to anyone who's involved in community media and wants to get more involved in leadership or maybe is thinking about entering the field? Any words of encouragement you want to leave listeners with?
What I tell anybody and everybody is that I'm the guy whose office telephone rings on my cell phone. So if you ever want to talk or give me a call, I get a call from Glendora once a week, who has been doing public television since television, and she always wants to call and just check in. And I think that it's important that everybody feels and finds out that my number is a very public number, and you want to give me a call, have any questions or get together, please feel free. I'm always available, and I don't ever want to be... my phone always rings.
So that's the message. Find Glenn. And very last thing this time for real, I promise.
Okay.
So again, this show is called Pass the Mic, where we pass the mic between different leaders in the field. And the last question for you, Glenn, is who would you like us to pass the mic to next?
I think that there's a couple of great people out there. I would give. I'll call him for you. It's David Gauthier from Mass Access. He is an incredible. He's leading us to the State House to go up there and talk to some of our legislators about funding. We're all going down to D.C. in a couple of weeks to talk to some senators and representatives. But David Gauthier is a guy you want to talk to. He knows this business inside and out. It'd be a great opportunity to talk to him about some of these legislative things that we've all got juggling in the air to help keep us going and on the air.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Glenn, for all the work you do and for coming on Pass the Mic.
I appreciate it.
And thank you for listening to ELI Presents Pass the Mic. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe and follow along as ELI alumni continue passing the mic to the leaders who built community media and those leading it forward. And if there's a community media leader that you think we should pass the mic to next, we'd love to hear from you. If you're able, we ask that you consider supporting the foundation of the Alliance for Community Media. Your donation helps support programs like the Emerging Leaders Institute, the Hometown Media Awards, and the Inclusion, Equity, and Engagement Caucus. Every contribution makes an impact, and you can learn more at allcommunitymedia.org/foundation. That's allcommunitymedia.org/foundation. We'll see you next time when we pass the mic.